Welcome back, everyone. In the best interest of broadening this show to serve as many people in the neurodivergent community possible, I invited a guest host for our episode today, my social media director, Tessa McAvoy. And Tessa's the right choice because she's autistic, obviously bright, and very involved in businesses that serve the neurodivergent community. Tessa speaks the language and really understands the plight of this community as she is an integral part of it. But I also interviewed Tessa on January 15th of this year, and she got amazing raving reviews. So I'm very excited to have her. Tessa, thank you for becoming our host. Please introduce our guest.
On today's show, I would love to introduce Mary Judy from Alpine Square. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm
Thanks for
curious,
having me.
and I'm curious just to really get really started. Is I am wondering what do you do for your occupation? And I'm wondering, how do you help neurodivergent people in the community?
Let me start by saying that I am part of the neurodivergent community myself. I have diagnoses of anxiety, PTSD, depression here and there. I also wonder some days if I might have a little bit of dyscalculia going on because numbers are not always my friend, but I haven't been screened for that, so I'm not exactly sure. And as part of that community and with family members who range across the autism spectrum, a number of different mental health conditions that fall within the big umbrella of neurodiversity and neurodivergent thinkers, this is an important community for me. This is primarily the people that I want to serve. However, my business and the profession that I do is not limited only to neurodiverse people. That happens to be my passion. And neurodiversity is the reason that I got into the business. But what I do is I realized that while we have some really discouraging statistics as a country about the employability and fulfilling lives for neurodivergent thinkers, that's the case with a lot of people with disabilities in general. And while it's not always an easy system to navigate, there are federal programs in place, such as the Employment First mission out of the Office of Disability Employment Policy, which set up a framework about 20 years ago, actually, for us to recognize that all people with disabilities are able to have a fulfilling, engaging life. And the health statistics for people that are living, engaged in a community, that are working and are having a self-sustaining life are going to have better outcomes. And that, of course, is what we're driving toward. So my piece of the Employment First mission is that I understand from a federal level with Social Security programs and other federal programs, as well as at a state level for many different states, their Medicaid programs. Medicaid is typically where within a state, people with disabilities are able to connect not only to having health insurance, but also to having various services that they can self-direct that are going to help them in order to maintain that fulfilling life that they're looking for. In many cases, very specifically, and this is where Tessa and I have spoken many times together, with regard to employment, there are a number of services available that make it possible for people to be able to work because they don't have to worry about their medications being affordable and being available when they need them. They don't have to worry about things like having their laundry done, for example, things like transportation, things like different pieces of everyday life that if they're not in order, it's really hard for a person to maintain a job. And when you have the worry over your head about, do I have health care in order to take care of myself, my family? Do I have the ability to go to the grocery store and pay for food and just do the things that everyone has to do on a daily life, as part of daily life, I mean, then when we put those worries aside, we are able to focus our attention wholly on our job and finding something that's we're passionate about, that's fulfilling for us, and that makes us happy. And that, in a nutshell, is what I help people to do. We know those government systems are all very, very complex. They're changing hour by hour in today's society, actually. And we need to connect with people who know how to take care of those things. In the same way that when somebody goes to a grocery store, for example, and you're interacting with a number of different specific experts within that grocery store, you're interacting with the people that know about the money and the exchange of it, the business policies, the different safety concerns that have to be followed. Somebody who knows produce, somebody who knows the butcher knows the meat section, right? You've got all these different people putting things together for you. What I do is I put those different pieces together for people, given what their own personal grocery store looks like. And I help them to achieve those things and maintain the ability to work.
That is so neat. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I realize that most folks assume that you cannot work if you're on benefits or vice versa. For me personally, I am seeking benefits despite working part-time at PostNet. How do you help people who are seeking employment and navigate benefits? And I recall hearing that you are part of Alpine Square.
Mm-hmm. So Alpine Square, my company, is a group of people. There are 7 of us actually that run this company, and we know all of the ins and outs of finding what benefits a person would be eligible for and understanding what their goals are for themselves, whether that is working an hour a week, whether that is working full time, whether that is running your own business, whatever it may be. It's our job within Alpine Square to help understand, number one, what people want. That's the self-determination part is the most important part. Number 2, understanding their medical records and what's going on with them, that they feel like they need supports, that they identify as a person with disability. And then we take those 2 sets of information and we marry them together and we say, how do the government systems, the public benefit systems, apply to this particular person's situation? And at the end of it, once we've engaged and really gotten to know someone and shown them, this is what you can do, this is what's possible, this is where you're at now, this is where you want to be, here's how we're going to help you to get there. We create something called a benefits summary and analysis. And what that report does for you is it's basically the guidebook to the individual that we're serving. That will have in there all of your connection points with all of the different people that are helping you maintain your benefits, maintain your health, maintain your employment, maintain the lifestyle that you want to do. And at the very end of it, as throughout all of it, quite honestly, but there is the connection to your personal benefits counselor. And that person is there as a member of your team to help you navigate those issues. People that have received benefits or have worked within these systems know that they don't always work smoothly. And there is nothing much harder than when a person who is, for example, receiving Social Security disability benefits, a cash benefit every month, and they're depending on that to live every month. And that check doesn't come, or they get a letter saying, well, your check is coming, but we're going to take some money out of it because you owe us some money because you were not supposed to receive that amount of money. Okay. And then many people just freeze. I mean, it's scary. It's scary when you see these things. And, my life is dependent on this. So that's where they have a person to call. They have their benefits counselor, somebody who's familiar with their case, somebody who understands the government systems and can say, number one, it's going to be all right. We're going to fix this. We're going to figure out what the issue is. And I'm going to walk alongside you as we figure it out. I can't guarantee you that they're not right. Things happen. I mean, there are issues that happen, but I can guarantee you that I'm going to walk alongside you. We're going to figure it out and we're going to find out what the right answer is here. And we're going to get you where you need to be.
Yes. And I know I'm going off tangent again, but I recall there being a horror story where somebody owed the government $21,000, even though they told the government, "Hey, look, I'm going to be bagging groceries for 5 hours a week." However, there was a mistake in the system that the person was having a challenging time getting resolved, and then owed the government $21,000 and supposedly stolen SSI benefits.
It's a common story, unfortunately.
If I may, only because I've watched my sister go through this with my nephew, John. He'll be 41 next month. So we're talking about that long. I've watched her struggle with some things. And it's so wonderful to be able to go to a company, a group of people like yours, Mary, and first of all, just to calm down. That's the first thing. Okay, fine. I have somebody who can guide me. And then to explain the complexities of the system, just godsend. Thank you.
Well, and for people that don't know, Tessa and I are in one state. Judith is in another.
And my sister's in another.
And your sister's in another. So, as are my sisters. And Judith, you and I have the same story. My sister also has a son about that age, also dealing with these kinds of struggles. And being in those different states, oftentimes you do need to not only understand the state-specific systems, but you need to be networked in with the culture and the people that are working within it so that you can understand what you're going into. I belong to a national organization called NABWIS. It is the National Association of National Association of Benefit Work Incentive Specialists. There we go, NABWIS. It's a mouthful. But essentially, anyone who belongs to this organization, NABWIS, and we have them in all 50 states, multiples in many states, those people are the state experts. They understand piece by piece how to do things. So there are many clients that I work with that are outside of Colorado, which is my home state right now. And those many people we are able to serve from, various places. But when it gets to the point that no, this specific case is hitting some real snags that are state specific, that are network specific, we often.
Yes.
I see a house pet.
Yes.
Who's that pet? What's the name?
There were two. It was Albie and Bear, and somehow they pushed open the door, got back in here while I was talking, and
that's okay. Valuable members of the show.
Very much so.
Hey, Albie and Bear, and I know. Going off from what you were saying, for everybody who is listening outside of the state, I am curious. How can people outside of Colorado take take your advice and also can take advantage of your advice too.
So the way that that works is anyone is welcome to go to my website, which is alpinesquare.net, N-E-T. Everyone wants that to be .com. And they can see an explainer video about what benefits counseling is. They can understand from a lot of information that we have posted there how we interact with various agencies and government entities and individuals, groups, families, and helping them navigate the systems that they need to get through. Most of the rules and systems that we navigate do apply nationwide.
Oh.
However, when those people are hitting on some sort of stumbling block, they can go to the NABWIS website, which is NABWIS.org, and they can look for a person who does the same work that we do, only they do it within their state. So, for example, if someone in California needed to have state-specific information about something, they can then go to nabwis.org. They can search for members that are in California and serving California, and they can find someone that does the same things that we do.
That is
So let's just talk for a minute. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off script either, Tessa, but I want to let people know, because this is government systems that we're working for. And so there is an inherent belief that when you're accessing government systems, that there must be some kind of a financial need there, right? And so while our business and many businesses like ours are able to perform services nationally on many, many, many different topics, generally when we're operating outside of the state of Colorado, we're doing that for a private pay fee. And it's a hefty fee. It takes a lot of certifications in order to be able to do what we do, and a lot of it personal experiences that are very valuable. And so there's a price tag to that, right? When you are dealing with a benefits counselor that is inside your state, some of them are working for organizations that are providing those services for free. Okay. They're doing it because they work for a not-for-profit agency or a university, or a number of different ways that can happen, right? It could be through an independent living center. There's one of those in every single county in every state in the US. So there are places to get to those within your own state that way. There are also some states, Colorado being one of them, and then there are 3 others, that actually have benefits planning built into their supported living services and their developmental disability waiver system. So while everyone has some version of those kinds of waivers within their Medicaid system, not all states have built benefits planning into that. So, for example, we have many, many clients who are working, they are living on their own, and they have what's called the supported living services waiver through the Colorado Health First Medicaid system. Those people are able to access our services free. Well, free to them, let's say. They have a certain amount of time that they're allowed to work with us every year that is on their services plan. That's one way to do that. But many states have other ways of involving those services as well. And you just need to be cautious when you are talking to a benefits planner and understanding what that agreement is going to look like. Is this something that can be delivered through a public system, or is this something that you'll need to pay for?
That is very good to know, and thank you so much for clarifying everything. And also going on to our next question is there something, I remember you talking about earlier called benefits planning, and how can these benefit plans directly support employment opportunities?
So specifically what benefits planning does, and the entire structure of it was built around people working. That doesn't mean that all the people that we're working with are, or that we're serving are working right now, but they have an intention to work one way or the other. They want to bring that into their lives. The reason being not just because they want to be a cog in the wheel, but because they want to engage in their community. That's what's happening besides the practical side of being able to pay rent, buy food, buy your clothes, that kind of thing. Hopefully have some money for a vehicle, a vacation, something you want to do, right? I mean, there's that piece of the self-sustaining part of work, but the bigger part that's more important to each of us as individuals is it does make us a part of a community. It requires us to interact with other people. So that's what we're looking to do. Many people that come to us are not able to work yet because they haven't figured out, number one, say they're getting a nice cash benefit that is allowing them to live in their apartment. And they know there are rules that say, but if I have income, I'm going to lose my cash benefit every month. Or I have a certain kind of housing that some kind of housing support through housing and urban development. And if I have an income or if I make over a certain amount of money, I'm not going to be able to keep that house. So what exactly do I do? That's when you talk to someone like us. And we tell you, here is exactly what those limits are. Here is exactly the framework that you have to work in. Most states have something called Medicaid for working adults with disabilities. And that means that Medicaid is not just for the word used, commonly used within government systems, is people that are indigent, right? That means people that don't have a lot of resources, people that don't have a lot of money that we would commonly consider to be poor. Well, you don't have to be poor to receive Medicaid. As a matter of fact, in the state of Colorado, under what's called our buy-in program, also called our Working Adults with Disabilities program, if you qualify to work in that program, you can make as much as $100,000 a year, which living in Colorado, that's not a ton of money, but it is enough not to be living in poverty. And you don't have to be living in poverty to continue receiving Social Security cash benefits or to be receiving your Medicaid health care or to receive the services through the Medicaid waivers or any of the other things that make a comfortable life and an independent life for you. You don't have to be beholden to someone else. You can take care of yourself and have disabilities and have a job and have a fulfilling life at the same time. And those are the intricate rules and systems that we help people navigate.
That is so good to know, because there is this really big misconception that poverty equals punishment. And if you're poor or barely making enough to scrape by, especially in expensive states like Colorado and California, people tend to assume, well, you cannot have nice things because you are poor. You can't go on that vacation because you are poor. Otherwise, you'd be stealing and leeching off the system, especially when people make this assumption that the disabled population is stealing textiles and like leeching away from society. From my experience, and in reality, it's the opposite. The more opportunities you can give a disabled individual like myself, the more prosperous a society can get, because of how fulfilled everybody is. And even if a disabled individual or somebody like me goes on a vacation, the economy is getting stimulated, not only from the vacation or the travel expenses, but from the local gift shops and other food services, which really brings in to a very prosperous and upbeat economy.
That's a very, very strong economic point that you just made, Tessa, that our economies overall are stronger and better the more of us that are able to participate in it. And that's what we want to have everyone do, regardless
Yes.
of whether they have a disability or not.
Yeah, and that's why in my eyes, even if you give a disabled individual your tax dollars, or even if you assume that a disabled individual is leaking off of your tax dollars, that is a very incorrect assumption, because the more money and the more support you can give a disabled individual, the more likely they can enjoy the economy, they can enjoy gifts, they can enjoy the arts, media, go to the movies, or buy movie services, which really feeds into the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of employment, I remember talking in our pre-interview about employment coaches.
Yes. Employment coaches are very, very valuable services that we can help people to identify. Many of the people that come to us for services are actually looking to access initial services. They did not know prior to getting an autism diagnosis, for example, let's just use that, or even an ADHD or a dyslexia diagnosis, any of those challenges that you're experiencing in your mind and how your mind works are things that need to be supported in order for you to be able to access a world that wasn't necessarily built for you. Job coaches are people who are trained in order to help people navigate the systems within employers, to help people figure out what it is they want to do with their time. One of my favorite sayings is that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, the reality is you'll actually produce a ton of work. Your energy is producing work. But if you love it, it doesn't have to be a struggle. And that's ideally what we're all looking for. And so a coach that is knowledgeable about your area, about helping you figure out what it is you're passionate about and what you want to do, can then help you. Most typically, the place you would go to start with is your local county workforce center, or your local state vocational rehabilitation offices. Those are the quickest and easiest ways to get into the system. If you happen to be somebody that is already receiving Social Security benefits, for example, and you're figuring it out that, hey, I don't have to just stay home. I can engage in work and keep my benefits coming that I need to survive right now. And people that are receiving Social Security have access to something called Ticket to Work programs. So all of these states have them. They are federally funded programs, and these are all ways for you to get into being able to work. That's also one of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. You don't necessarily have to be working to talk to a benefits counselor. If you're starting with a benefits counselor, which a lot of our clients do, they're just realizing, because they have somebody that they can ask questions to, that yes, they have a disability and they have the ability to work and to get the benefits that they need in order to be successful. So the coach is one of the job coach, the employment coach is one of those critical players that we would pass people to once we determine this person wants to work, right? This is something they want to do. They want to have a fulfilling life, and work is part of that for them. So we would bring in our partners in various coaching organizations that would help with that.
I have a quick question about that. Is
Sure.
there a cap on what somebody can make and still maintain their benefits? Or is it like a graduated scale that if you make X, your benefits will come down a teeny bit? Is there something like that?
Yeah. So particularly in things like the Supplemental Nutrition Access Program, SNAP, which is back in the day was called food stamps, but supplemental nutrition benefits are what they are now. And with SNAP, you don't necessarily have to have a disability. You can be it's just somebody who's not making a lot of money, and you will qualify for that. And the SNAP program works exactly that way. So it depending on how many people are within your household, how many people you're responsible for feeding and helping to keep healthy, that and the amount of money you make determines how much you will receive through the SNAP program. So yes, it will graduate. Exact same thing with Social Security program. So if, for example, we'll just throw out some round numbers. These are not realistic numbers, but we'll just throw them out for easy counting. Say you're getting $1,000 a month through Social Security, and you're using that to help you buy food, help you pay your rent, all of those different things, your electric bill. And you get a job and you're making over, you're making a nice significant amount of money. Say you're making, I don't know, $2,000 a month, right? When you're not used to making money, $2,000 a month would be nice. What will happen is you'll report that income. You'll give your pay stubs basically to your Social Security office, to your Medicaid office, to the different reporting organizations, and they'll take a look at that and they'll throw it into a formula. First thing that's going to happen is if you're a person living on your own, supporting yourself, and you are at $2,000, you would be working above what's considered to be SGA, which is the standard limit of, this is a poverty limit, right? This is somebody needs to make more than this in order to be able to have some extra money, right? And so what they would do is they would say, well, here's the thing. They're making $2,000 a month. We don't know if they're going to be able to keep that job. So we will continue sending them the $1,000 a month from Social Security for 9 months that they make over what's considered that poverty level at SGA number. Okay. And it may be that you're making $2,000 one month, you're making $800 the next month. The first month that you make $2,000, that would count towards your 9 months. The month you make $800, that wouldn't count because that's not above SGA. So not getting into the weeds too much about this, there is a whole formula for when you receive benefits based on how much money you make and when you don't. And as Judith, as you were saying, sometimes things will decrease a little bit. Sometimes things will decrease a lot. But in the end, the way that all of these formulas are put together is that the person that has disabilities and is working, they're going to have more money in their pocket because they are working. That's
and
the whole
they'll have more of a better sense of themselves.
Oh, most
and
certainly.
I
That's the
kind of
important
think,
part.
and Tessa, you can talk about this too from your own personal experience, but and I know from my nephew, but I kind of think that people want to work if they can work,
Absolutely.
and they're not just taking as much as they can from the government so that
Yeah.
they are non-participatory in the community.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea that people that receive public benefits are trying to play the system is the biggest
Yeah.
myth I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I've worked with thousands of people, and that is not at all the case. It's people that are not working and are living on public benefits are doing so in their minds, always with everyone I work with, temporarily until they can figure out something else better.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Everyone's
Tessa. Do
trying
you
to
have
improve their own life.
what is your personal experience with this, Tessa?
All right. So for my personal experience, I do know quite a few people with chronic illnesses who said, yes, if I could, I would work. But because of my illness and my autoimmune issues, I am unable to work or to publicly participate, which is a really huge bummer and downer. But I'm just very glad that I can receive SSDI and SNAP benefits just because even receiving these benefits does improve the quality of my life. And yes, there can be so many misconceptions, especially when it comes to me. as somebody who travels, somebody who eats at nice restaurants, and somebody who has like really good looking clothes, that I'm just basically sitting around my mother's house, leeching off benefits and just taking and just becoming this really greedy person. In reality, what happens is I get the benefits and I actually have an absolutely amazing time cooking quality and healthy meals, which actually and just being able to feed myself really well gets me out into the community spaces, and that's where I begin networking, meeting up with people. And personally, that's why I sometimes get really nice clothes as hand-me-downs, and when it comes to my vacations, it is something that I enjoy doing, and it gets me into a mentally healthier state so that I can continue pursuing employment, trudging through the hundreds of job applications, and trying to launch my career, even if I must take a mental break and go on vacation and be like, all right, I have this money. I'm gonna put some of my residual income aside, go on this vacation so I can continue to refresh and figure out how am I going to be able to participate. That is my personal experience with people, especially myself, who receive a degree of government benefits or completely rely off of benefits.
Well, I will attest to this. Thank you for that, because in the year that I've known you, you are always trying to think of something else to do, either
Mhm.
for me and my endeavors or other people, other companies that you've met in your community. So, yes, I support what you just said because you're assertive, you're aggressive, and you're always thinking.
Thank you so
You're
much.
very inventive. Keep going. Yeah.
All right, so I realize I'm going to take another pivot. So when it comes to employment, once you are paired with an employment coach, it is very common that the employee is pressured into certain accommodations.
Mm.
For instance, I caved when someone kept repeating, autistics need a lot of breaks and quiet space. However, I found that specific accommodation counterproductive productive during my workflow. Instead, I needed time to complete a task with very few interruptions besides customers. So, how do you ask people what they need for success versus making assumptions in the workforce?
So that is part of the team and our efforts to understand what that individual wants to do. That's why we have benefits counselors, one person, but we have the employment coach that we've talked about. We have usually the healthcare team is involved in several different ways. We have people from what we call natural supports. That's a really nice clinical term, isn't it? It means your family and your friends, right? The people that know you best. And we work with that group of people. We quite regularly in my organization would call it Team Tessa, right? I mean, the person that we are working around, that's the person that we're there to support. And we listen to the individual that we're serving, and we understand the different points of views, particularly in the neurodivergent community. Communication isn't always the strong point, right? That's what somebody needs help with. And it's up to, specifically in the role that you're talking about, for the employment coach to know the individual that they are supporting so well that they understand what you may be able to convey, whether that is through your words, your actions, your history, conversations they've had with other people around you. And it's up to them to help you communicate that and to stand by you and understand when your employer may not be understanding you, and to step in and be able to say, with your permission, of course, because you're an adult, right? You get to make those decisions for yourself. But with your permission to then say to that employer, that's not what Tessa needs. Tessa needs someone to understand them. And I'm here to help you with that. I am one of Tessa's accommodations. I am helping her to communicate.
Yes, yes. Speaking of communication, I realize that some neurodivergent people, including myself, cannot fully articulate what they need, especially if they feel pressured or rushed. For me
sure.
personally, I cannot even make the decision between Chinese or Mexican food if someone is breathing down my throat and saying, "Do you want Chinese, Mexican? Come on, hurry up, you need a response." However, with that in mind, I did say yes to a few accommodations to get people off my back, which did not end well for me. One example consisted of taking an art history test on a computer. The professor thought that being on a computer would help with my grammar. Unfortunately, I nearly flunked the exam since my anxiety skyrocketed around digital tests. How can an employer, and a coach figure out what accommodations are needed, especially given the fact that some neurodivergent individuals do not do well when put on the spot?
So I'm going to ask to take a break with regard to that question, because it was my understanding, Tessa, that you wanted to talk about how benefits support people working within the neurodivergent community. We're getting down a path really strongly here into specific supports that job coaches provide. And I'm wondering if we could maybe pull it back to more specifically to benefits related questions. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I can ask another benefits question.
Okay, that would be terrific.
All right, so speaking of communications, I do realize that it can be really hard for neurodivergents to figure out what they need and they do not need. So when it comes to benefits, how can a job coach or a benefits coach help a neurodivergent figure out what benefits they will need to succeed?
That's a great question. And the way to do that is part of that discovery meeting of getting to know the individual and understanding what their hopes and desires are for themselves. And oftentimes that does mean communication with family, friends, natural supports, whatever you want to call it, past employers sometimes, depending on what your relationship is with them. Your medical providers oftentimes are very, very helpful, as well as individuals like us that are very familiar with the system. So by creating that team effort around that person, understanding that the individual we're serving is the captain of the ship, they're the one driving us in the direction we want to go, that with that team input, we are able to figure out exactly what benefits are going to serve them the best and how are they going to get to where they want to go.
That is a really strong point. And for me personally, when it comes to benefits, I was actually pressured in signing up for food stamps and SSI a few years ago. Unfortunately for me, at the time, I did not think I needed the benefits, and I said, "No thanks. Why am I being signed up for these benefits? I do have steady freelance income, and why do you feel that I need to be on SSI when I can work?" At the time, my understanding was if you were on SSI, you had to be classified as 100% disabled and therefore unable to work, which is why I resisted so hard and said no SSI. And I also got an impression that if you were on food stamps and if you owned over $2,000 or working more than 40 hours a week, you would get penalized and fined by the government for being on food stamps. That is why I resisted the benefits so hard in the beginning.
And I'm sorry you had that experience, but it's not an uncommon one, unfortunately. The reason so many people with disabilities and our society in general has a lot of those misconceptions is because they don't understand how the rules work. And that's exactly what a benefits counselor does for you. They help you to understand it. You're correct in some of the assumptions that you are speaking about. For example, if you are receiving SSI, then you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets in your names. However, using that as an example, I have people who are receiving SSI and their personal checking account probably had about, I'd say $3,000 in it. The reason that they were able to have that in there is because their mother was on the checking account as well. So technically only half of the asset belonged to that person. But then that person also had like $80,000 in savings. But it was in an asset vehicle that didn't count for SSI. The government has also established a number of different savings vehicles and financial tools that we can use in order to allow people to access the benefits that they need, but be saving for their goals as well, and be saving for their own future. So the one client that I'm thinking of that was receiving SSI had what was the equivalent counted toward him as $1,500 because their mother was on their bank account. So they had access to that money through just a local checking account or something. But then they had $80,000 that they had saved over a number of years with an ABLE account. So ABLE accounts are national financial products that are out there with they're managed by different states and different banks according to the particular state rules. And you are allowed to then save money that can only be used for your benefit, right? So for someone like you, Tessa, who likes to travel, if you're not, I know you are able to travel on your own, but say you couldn't, say you needed somebody to help you on your travel. You could use money from your ABLE account in order to pay for your vacation, but also pay for the needs of the assistant that you take with you on. Now, there is an opportunity for somebody to really play the system there, right? Somebody's thinking, oh, I can get my girlfriend's, vacation paid for because I'll just take them as my assistant. No, the rules are tight, and you have to report things. Your best position to be in a situation like that is to document all of the costs and show that, no, this person really needed to be with me in order to support my needs so that I can enjoy that vacation that I'm taking. So there are things like that. There's another vehicle called a pass account, for example. So if somebody really wants to buy a car, and because they need a car to be able to get around. If you live in Colorado, you probably do need a car. It's very hard to get around here. And you want to be able to do that, not only because it's going to make it easier for you to get to and from work, but it's just going to make it easier for you to access your community in general, right? And so you can set up something called a pass account, and you can take money every month and you can save toward that big financial goal of yours. That might be buying a condo. That might be buying some film equipment, right? That might be for whatever your goals are. If it could be saving for a vacation. There are all kinds of vehicles like the ABLE account, like the PASS account, that a benefits counselor can help you understand, so that when you are making money, you are being gifted money, you are, however it is that the things are going, we can help you to look at your situation and delve down to the nearest dollar and say, this is what you need to do in order to maintain those benefits. Or guess what? We talk to people all the time that are working their way off of benefits, not all at once, right? It's not a bam, your benefits disappear because you have a job, but they may be working, they may be earning a really nice income. They may have, bought their condo, bought their house, done the various things they wanted to do. And now they're moving up in their career, and they're going to make enough money that they're going to be coming off of benefits. That's when we provide that analysis to them that says, you know what, take that promotion, because with that promotion, with all of the hard work that you've done to build this life for yourself, you don't really need that money that you were getting from the government anymore. You're in a position where you're able to go on and work and take care of yourself. And by the way, rarely do all benefits disappear all at once. That just doesn't happen. Usually the only thing that causes that to happen is death. And that's not what we're working toward. So different systems pick up different pieces depending on how the federal and the state programs are interacting together. And each case is different, and your benefits counselor will look at yours specifically and help you navigate that.
That is so amazing to know. And honestly, you made a really good point about there being this misconception that all of a sudden that when you started working, kaboom, all your benefits completely disappeared. And that was a really huge misconception that people on benefits are in quotation marks lazy and entitled. Yet in reality, the reason that some people are able to get employed and able to succeed is because they have all the support of having the benefits, meaning that instead of worrying about rent each month, they could use the benefits money toward rent and like basic necessities, and they could put all of their energy and effort into working up the career ladder and really trying to live the most fulfilling life, as I mentioned earlier. But without that support, they would not be able to get into work or to even get a promotion. That is my biggest takeaway from what you said.
And you are spot on with that.
Do you have
Thank
a
you
final
so much.
question, Tessa?
Yes.
Do you have a final question? We're getting
All right.
towards the
So
end.
I realized that we're hitting the 40-minute mark, and my final question would be, what do you wish for the world to know about neurodivergent people on benefits seeking work, and what do you want people to walk away with?
I want people to know that understanding themselves, whether that's with a neurodivergent diagnosis or, scoliosis or, my goodness, multiple sclerosis, like any kind of disability, that's very much a part of you. And the world does owe it to you to understand who you are. That doesn't mean that you're entitled. It doesn't mean that you are given a blank check to just make any demands that you want. But I wish for this world to be open and understanding enough that all of us, with all of our different differences, can be accepted for exactly who we are. And all people, I've never met a single person in all of the people that I've met in the many decades I've been on this planet. I've never met a single person who didn't really just want what's best for everyone. I think that people, even though it doesn't look that way, I think people are always striving. And the people that are challenged the most, whether that's with an intellectual disability or a different way of seeing the world, those are the people that are trying the most. And those are the people that I want to help.
Exactly. And one last thing to make very clear is when it comes to helping out people in the world, there can be so many misconceptions. One being that people will get on benefits to enable to substance usage, but in reality, and from what I'm hearing from all sorts of people in this community, is that the moment that somebody has stable housing, financial support, they are less likely to go to substances because they're feeling so supported and so loved in other aspects of their lives, that their desire for really damaging substances does fall by the wayside. That's what I've learned from my experiences of being in the disability community. And with that being said, do you have a website or newsletter that people can reach out or contact you to?
Yes, our website at Alpine Square is alpinesquare.net. And on that website, you'll see a sign up for our newsletter if you'd like to receive more information specifically. And there's also a sign up button there if you'd like to talk to someone within my team to maybe understand how to approach benefits counseling. Even if you're calling or watching from another state, that's absolutely fine. Let us know where you're from, and we can help you find people locally, or we can help you to the best of our ability as well.
All right, thank you so much for your time, and for being here today. Do you have any last things that you wish you got to say or talk about?
I just really appreciate spending this time with you and Judith. This has been a really great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mary. I enjoyed it as well. And Tessa knocked it out of the park. Thank
She
you,
always
Tessa.
does.
I enjoyed listening to this. So thank you very, very much. And thank all of you for watching. I appreciate every one of you. Our community is growing. I looked at our subscribers, and so we're going to work very, very hard to broaden our scope of what we provide for you. So thank all of you, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
All right.